Hello and a very good evening to all our viewers today on Facebook Live. Sorry to have kept you waiting for a while. We had some technical issues. And as advertised earlier, I have with me Professor Bishnu from the School of Natural Sciences at MEC. He's an eminent scholar, academician, scientist, all rolled into one. His credentials speak for themselves. I'm sure you may have read up about him on the website earlier. For your kind information, just to encapsulate his record in the recent times, he won the Esther Hoffman-Biller Medal Award in 2016. He was also the All India SPOC for the International Year of Light 2016. Those are his most recent achievements. Well, we have a lot of questions coming up today, and I would like to start off with the very first one, which is on the minds of many. In fact, every time either parents or students visit the campus, they ask us one question: how is education at MEC different from the IITs? So I believe Professor Pal is one of the finest and the best persons to answer this question, and I will pose the same to him. Professor?
Well, Praveen, it's a pleasure for me to talk to you. And your question about how it is different from IITs. Okay, I have been with IIT Delhi for over 35 years, and soon after retirement, actually, I joined here. So, the basic differentiator here is that the aim is, we are just 2.5 years old, so going to be 3 years. So, the aim of this institute is to have an engineer with a overall holistic perfection, you can say, or holistic overall growth. So we have, besides engineering, we have a school of natural science, which are basic physics, basic sciences courses. We have usually the engineering school of engineering science, and we have an interesting school of creative science, which is usually not there in IITs as a formality, as a formal school. So this is one of the major differentiator of this new college, and we have this association or MOU with the French university at the French school, which used to be Ecole Centrale Paris, and now it is called Centrale, which is almost 200-year-old institute in France, and one of the very well-known institutes in Europe. So we have tied up collaboration, our institute has tied up collaboration with the French school. So it is different from Anglo-Saxon kind of traditional university base that we are normally accustomed to, because we follow either the British or the American system to a large extent. So one is creative science is taught with almost every semester. We have some course which go under the name of a code name of AC, Society Enterprise, in which we have filmmaking courses. We have courses like cinema and philosophy. We have soft skill courses, laboratory courses. So for the design what you call as a design thinking lab. So these are, I think, which is not very usual in the Indian context, but in Indian engineering education context, although there are several other institutes which are slowly coming and trying to do something similar, because soft skill, the expertise on soft skill or soft skill development is a buzzword today in most of the new engineering colleges. Another major difference with the IITs is that a strong emphasis here is put on basic foundation on basic sciences. Like for example, physics. Typically in IITs, the courses would be something like a physics course would be something like 5 to 6 credits. Here, every engineering student has to go through something like 16 credits of physics. Mathematics likewise is almost 24 credits. So this forms the basic philosophy of French engineering education. So in a way, these have been incorporated in our syllabi here. We have French colleagues who also participate in teaching Two of our deans are actually French. Dean of R&D is a French professor, and the Dean of Academics is also a French professor. And like I'll give you an example. A civil engineering student will have to go through a course of an electrical engineering, signals and systems, which is very, very unlikely in other institutes, because we feel that, and this is also to an extent influenced by French philosophy, of the French engineering education philosophy, because like in France, they don't give you, they tell you at the end of your an engineering study in a school like ECP that you are an mechanical engineer or an electrical. You are just called an engineer. So overall, you are an engineer. You should be able to tackle not necessarily just mechanical, even if mechanical happens to be your specialty or specialization during the course. But you have been exposed to electrical engineering, you've been exposed to computer science, you have been exposed to, if you are a mechanical, you're exposed to civil engineering to an extent. And so in a sense, the basic flavor in our overall syllabi is something like, you can call it as an interdisciplinary approach with a strong focus on foundation in the basic sciences. We also have School of Humanities, where like English, economics, these are, of course, they are also in any typical engineering colleges. And in addition to that, our students go through a course in French language, which is not a credited course, but it is an audit course, and it will be reflected in their grade cards at the end of every semester. So they are prepared also to an extent to see like a global engineer.
Yeah, in fact, the French language is spoken in more than 80 countries across the world, and it would actually make every graduate more employable.
Yeah, so that's what we feel. There are several French French companies in India. So the employability of our graduates would definitely be higher in those companies also, because they are strong in fact the world is now flat, so they could be serving anywhere. So the purpose of this is to prepare an engineer who should be able to work in any place, not necessarily just in India.
Right, sir. And coming back to the IITs, we have another question which asks us, almost 90% of the faculty at MEC are from the IITs.
That's true.
Except the French faculty.
Yeah.
And so does that make MEC a bigger than IIT kind of an atmosphere, or a better than IIT kind of an atmosphere?
I would not like to draw such a comparison between IIT, and IIT has its own brand established and globally recognized. So we are a new crop of engineers we are trying to bring out with a strong exposure to European education, to a strong exposure to European kind of education rather than the Anglo-Saxon. And in that process, as I said, the very typical difference is, a very special difference here is the strong foundation in the basic science, because the French feel that French education believes that if you are good in physics, if you are good in mathematics, you should be a very good engineer to absorb any special subjects. So in that sense, that emphasis is not the same as in IITs. And it's actually not 90%, but fairly large fraction of our faculty at some stages, either they had done their graduation from IIT or their PhDs from IITs. And many of them also have done PhD or graduate studies from typically, for example, in the United States, good universities. So we are not trying to compete with IIT. That should be very clear. But at the same time, we are possibly making use of the best of practices that is there in IIT, and also the best of practices that is followed in Europe. So it's a combination of these two, which we are trying to, and only the success of that combination or our efforts would be seen only after the first batch go out. They will be our brand ambassadors. So we are hoping that they would be good, but let's see. Only time will tell, and it is just about a year more. We have a strong emphasis on industry connect. Maybe we can discuss that later. Yeah.
Fine, sir. And another question that's been asked is that if we are now in a firmly rooted digital age, we have digital technologies all around us, the Internet of Things, connected universe, connected minds, connected offices. So how is this transforming engineering education in the country?
Oh, this is influencing very significantly. It is influencing everyone in the country, not only just education, even otherwise. So you see, the internet is something. If the internet is not working at home, you feel like as if there's a power outage. You are nothing. Something is happening. You are missing very strongly.
Helplessness. Yeah.
So some helplessness. So everybody wants internet to be working all the time. And in that sense, all the institutes, including our institute, MEC, has a strong emphasis on infrastructure for the internet, so that every student has access to the internet 24/7. Many of our assignments are often given through the net. They have to submit through the net. Particularly the engineering teachers, many of them insist on that. So unless the system is working, so this digital technology is working, that is not feasible in that sense. So it is easier for the teachers to, some of the teachers, depending on his liking or disliking, many of us also try to see their assignments right on the laptop rather than on a written material. So this is there, but at the same time, writing also has writing and answering through writings, reports, and so on, has its own plus points. But at the same time, there's a mix of both. It cannot be totally digital. Our classrooms are totally, with all the infrastructure that we have in our lecture classroom. We have all digital techniques are available, which is for the teachers to decide whether he wants to use it or not.
Fine, so thank you for that. And another question is on the collaboration between Mahindra Group and Ecole Centrale Paris, now Centrale Superlec, of course. Mm-hmm. We all know that there's never been as significant a synergy in engineering education in our country as the one which is now between Mahindra Group and Ecole Centrale Paris. We know that, and we have JNTU also partnering in this triad, tripartite collaboration. The question is MEC a captive facility for providing engineering talent to the Mahindra Group and Tech Mahindra, or are we creating global engineers?
No, actually, you see that Mahindra Group had started this college out of their, what you call, something like a philanthropic, or there is a society here, I think it is called MEI,
Mahindra Educational Institutions, a not-for-profit.
This is a non-profit organization. So this is our main, funds come from that segment of the Mahindra engineering group.
So in effect, that would make MEC one of the largest corporate social responsibility initiatives in education as well.
Perhaps I would, because this is a very big group. It's a $17 billion company. So in that sense, yes, you can say that it is possibly true. And at the same time, because of our campus is, or rather our college is located within the Tech Mahindra complex itself. So it is only part of this is our building occupies, but we have Tech Mahindra's big offices are also there inside the campus. So as you can see that this would have some influence. For example, there is somebody coming to visit Tech Mahindra from some other company and some well-known company. So they also come here and come to our college. And if there is some outstanding person visiting Tech Mahindra, they will also deliver a talk here, and which will benefit our students. So we are, in a way, we are getting benefited because of the strong presence of Tech Mahindra very close to our college itself, which is within the campus.
In fact, Tech Mahindra has more than 800 customers across the world.
Yeah.
And most of the clients, when they visit the facility, they end up visiting our campus and are thrilled with the facilities.
Yeah.
So we do have an unfair advantage when it comes to global career prospects for our engineering graduates.
Yeah. That I'm almost 10% in agreement with you on this. And so hopefully, as I said, we are just too young, and we have just born. It's only 2.5-year old institute. So after in another 1 year or so, we will see how many of them could get good placements, and we have a very dedicated Industry Connect group, which is actually, in my experience of earlier working at IITs, I find it is a much more stronger emphasis here. And I know, for example, in IIT Delhi, where I'm still in a way I'm connected, they have started this kind of strong industry connect only very recently. There's a corporate relations dean which has been appointed only very recently. But here, right from day one, there is a strong industry connect group who are dedicated to connect our students and the institute with the industry, because we also have a stronger emphasis for internship, industry internship. The students go here twice, they can do internship twice, second year as well as in the third year, which is compulsory. So to find their placements, our Industry Connect is constantly keeps in touch with the industry, different industries. And it so happened the last year happens to be the first chance for testing that how good it is. So we had more number of offers from industries of internship positions, more number than what we actually required. So that gives you an indication of how strongly we are connected with the industry.
In fact, sir, in 2014, when we established MEC, we were among the very first few who would talk about industry-aligned education. Today, it has become a buzzword, but we were kind of pioneers in getting this movement started, where the focus would shift more towards industry, and the education would be more aligned to industry.
Yes, and we also have we are trying to put it in practice. It will come on the next semester, next to next semester, when the students will do a full-term, dissertation as a part of their degree requirement. So the students can be working because they have already gone through 2 internships at industries. Those who are very good and have performed exceedingly well, it is possible that the industry where they had gone to work for the internship will be actually mentoring them during their dissertation work in collaboration with one of our faculty.
And
that would be ideal for an industry training for a student.
And what about internships abroad, sir?
Yes, we you see, this is because of our French connection. We could send few students. Last year, the second year level students, about 4 or 5, I think, have gone to France, and one of them actually competed in a Indo-French collaboration, a fellowship which goes by the name of Raman Chapak Fellowship. So he competed for that and he got that, which is a bit unusual for a second year undergrad. So this year that number has gone to 12 as of now, and it is still efforts are still being put to make it little larger. So the good students, the ones who are performing extremely well, they have a very good chance to get placement in France for summer internship.
And what are your thoughts on the faculty profiles at MEC, sir? We call them a very tight, hand-picked bunch.
Yes.
That's increasing every year, obviously. But what are your thoughts on it with your background in the IITs?
You see, the requirement for getting a faculty position here is almost similar to IITs, but at the same time, it so happened that the way it evolved in the faculty hiring, our first director was Professor Dhande, who was actually 11 years, he had an experience as director of IIT Kanpur, so he is a hardcore IIT man. So he ensured that quality of faculty is very kept at the best level. At the same time, we have one differentiator here is that right from the beginning, we have few faculty who have originally, probably at some point of time, they would have studied at IIT, but had been working in industry, and now they have come back to academics. So that is also one of the differentiator, I would say, that some of our faculty not only are just purely academic oriented, but several of them has a good fraction of them has had lot of experience in industry. So in fact, I may mention here, I have worked in Germany at some point of time as an Alexander von Humboldt Fellow, and I have seen that a technical university in Germany, if you want to become a full professor, you have to have an industry experience, which is not mandatory in our country in that context. Though it is not mandatory here too, but at the same time, a conscious effort is being made to have few faculty who have a strong industry experience, which should benefit our students to a great extent about applied science.
And we have a question about the research focus at MEC. How strong is it?
When we are, you see, just to give you an indication about that, as I said, that our hiring policy is such that we will take the best available academic people. So that's why we still have fair amount of vacancies left at the faculty positions, because we are not able to get the standard that you would like to have. But this effort is a continuous process. It will happen. The vacancies will get filled. A new set of faculty is going to be hired in the next 2 months. And about the research you asked. So since they have all come with a PhD, all faculty is interested to carry out research. So at this point of time, we are still an undergrad college. We should be introducing postgraduates and PhDs very soon, maybe in another 1 to 2 years, 1.5 years or so. But at this point of time, we have made some MOUs with, for example, to start with, we have an MOU with IIT Guwahati to have joint supervision of PhD students, and also to tell you that how the research is going on. The Mahindra Ecole Centrale as a college, with the support of the Mahindra Educational Institutes, have also established several research labs dedicated to research as a facility for our faculty to carry out their research. And I also feel very happy to share with you that we already have our faculty have got awarded about 8 to 10, I think, sponsored projects. Some of them are from government agencies like DST, and fairly large amount of money involved with each of this project, DRDO, and also some from industry.
So we have a question on the placement angle at MEC, which I would like to answer on your behalf, sir. Yes, we do have a placement clause in place to all students, for all the students who join MEC, and one advantage that we have over most of our competitors is that we have a huge customer base both at Tech Mahindra level as well as the Mahindra Group level, and most of the customers of Mahindra Group and Tech Mahindra take an avid interest in the goings on and happenings at MEC, and they have an eye out on the graduates, the future graduates and engineers soon to pass out from MEC. So that is one critical advantage that we have at MEC, which would enable students to not just look at local prospects when it comes to careers and employment opportunities, but also globally. So yes, every student at MEC of working out with a good career and into a good prospective backgrounds both within the country as well as internationally.
I may add something to what Praveen said, is that during the counseling, when the students come for admissions, I have seen that very often the parents ask, because this is the modern society is like that what would be the kind of jobs they would get. So Tech Mahindra has apparently promised that they can hire, because their requirement is very Mahindra Group as a whole, they hire a large number of engineers every year. So they would have there's a good opportunity for our MEC engineers to get into Mahindra Group, but there is no compulsory bond or anything that since you have studied here and you have to work with Mahindra Group. So Mahindra Group can offer, but at the same time it is open for the students. It is his choice what he wants to do, whether he wants to work with Mahindra Group or anybody else. But at the same time, I also caution the parents, because in my time when I was a student, our parents would have never asked that what would be the package once my son gets a regular job. But this is modern society is like that. People inquire about that. So my answer to that to the parents is that if he has to get a good job, he has to also perform well in the academics. Suppose he does not he gets an ultimately a cumulative grade point average out of 10, he is somewhere around 5, 5.5 or so, then nobody will hire him. So, him or her. So, it is also a duty of the parents to also, counsel their words that they have to study very well and get a good results, and then they can hope that there should be no problem of getting a good job, especially because it is being supported by a big technology group or industrial group.
In fact, we have recently constituted an internship and placement council, which focuses on enabling the right fit for all the candidates or the students of MEC once they graduate. We are involved in identifying the best career opportunities for them, identifying the right kind of institutions and organizations across the world, also from within the Tech Mahindra customer base, at Tech Mahindra, across the Mahindra group, and worldwide. So we have a focus team working on enabling and assisting in placing students once they graduate. If they would like to pursue higher education, it's up to them.
Yeah, it is up to
them. If they would like to join a company of their choice or enter their own family business, that's up to them. But we do provide that kind of an assistance which would empower every graduate from MEC who has performed consistently and competently to walk out into a glorious career. And so now coming back to the new engineer paradigm, how would you define a new engineer? Because that's what we are promising to create at MEC, and that's what we are doing actually. In short, how would you define new engineer?
And it is a kind of, we use the word often as a rounded engineer that we are trying to bring out with our with the syllabi or the course or the instruction methodology that we are following. So therefore, for example, I would say one thing which I was a bit surprised that here every student in a group has to make a documentary film. So when I first joined, in fact I took the very first class at this institute in 2014. How is it going to help? But eventually I have realized that if you allow a person to make a film, his innate qualities and talent, which is not tutored by somebody else, can come out, and this is just an opportunity for him to contribute to that. So, for example, here they get trained very well on how to handle cameras for making films and so on. And I must say that any functions that we organize here, we do not hire any photographer. It is all done by our own students. So, this is one. I says there are other soft skills that they develop here. For example, in the design thinking lab, in our media lab. So, those things should be making them an engineer with not necessarily purely technical, but also, as I said, that is a rounded education.
In fact, the work that our School of Creative Sciences is doing at MEC could be the subject for an exclusive session on Facebook actually. But the whole point of what is taught in the School of Creative Sciences, in addition to design thinking, is to enable every student to become a storyteller, that they are able to express and convey their thoughts, their thought process, their ideas, their proofs of concept, to a willing audience when it comes to that time. The whole idea is to make them storytellers in their own way, which is why every student, by the time he or she graduates, would have worked on a short 8 to 10 minute documentary film, all by himself or herself, on the script, on the camera, on the direction, and the post-production as well.
And that also helps the students to carry out a specific task in a group. So because group activity is very important in industries today. So therefore, in that sense, they are getting trained right here at MEC.
And so there's a lot of talk about the employability quotient and employability of engineers in India at present. A lot of engineers are left devoid of employment opportunities. Are we taking any special steps to ensure that every MEC graduate becomes not just employable but highly employable?
I think so. Our course syllabi are
Itself.
aimed for that. But I can give an example of. It so happened, I think, about a year back, there was some kind of a test which is used by TCS to employ and get new intakes for their IT. And I don't know who organized it, because we have a colleague here who earlier worked with the TCS, one of the innovation labs. So maybe he helped in doing that. So some of our students had taken that test not to get employment, but just to see where did they stand. And it turned out at the end of the test that they have all qualified. So, I mean, this is just one example about the employability of our students. But as I said, the time will only tell. We are trying our best, but ultimately it is the acid test would be when they get the employment after another 1 year. The first batch would be out.